The cold metal floors of the research station echoed with the sound of alien footsteps. Dr. Zephyrian Cole walked slowly through the dark corridors, his blue-skinned hands holding a glowing scanner. The device beeped softly as it searched for any signs of life in the abandoned building. Earth had been dead for over 200 years. The once green and blue planet now looked brown and empty from space. No cities glowed in the darkness. No radio signals came from the surface. The humans who once lived here were all gone, killed by a terrible sickness that spread across their world like fire. But Dr. Cole was not human. He came from a planet called Altair, where his people had blue skin and could live for 300 years. He was a scientist who studied different forms of life across the galaxy. His job was to learn about species that no longer existed, and humans were his latest project. The Galactic Scientific Consortium had sent him to Earth with a small team. They wanted to understand how humans had lived and why they had died so quickly. Most alien species took thousands of years to disappear, but humans had vanished in less than 50 years. Dr. Cole stopped walking and looked at his scanner again. Something was different about this reading. Deep underground, beneath tons of concrete and steel, his device was picking up a strange signal. It was very weak, but it was there. He pressed a button on his communication device. "Dr. Voss, can you hear me?" A voice answered him right away. "Yes, Dr. Cole. What did you find?" "I think there might be something alive down here. My scanner shows energy readings from the lower levels." Dr. Liana Voss was the only member of his team who looked almost human. She came from a planet in the Centauri system, where her people had developed to look very similar to the humans of Earth. Her hair was silver, and her eyes were bright green, but otherwise she could have been mistaken for a human woman. "That's impossible," she said through the communicator. "Nothing has lived on Earth for 2 centuries. Dr. Cole kept walking toward the source of the signal. "I know what the records say, but my scanner doesn't lie. There's something down there." He found a stairway that led deeper into the building. The steps were covered with dust and small pieces of broken concrete. Each step he took made a small cloud of dirt rise into the air. The scanner's beeping got louder as he went down. At the bottom of the stairs was a heavy metal door. Strange symbols were painted on it in faded yellow paint. Dr. Cole couldn't read human writing, but he had studied enough to know this meant danger authorized personnel only. He tried to open the door, but it wouldn't move. The metal had rusted over the years, and the electronic lock was dead. Dr. Cole pulled out a small device that looked like a silver pen. He pointed it at the lock and pressed a button. A thin beam of light cut through the metal like it was soft butter. The door fell open with a loud crash that echoed through the empty building. Dr. Cole stepped through and found himself in a long hallway, lined with more doors. His scanner was beeping very fast now. He walked to the end of the hallway and found the largest door of all. This one had even more warning signs on it. Some showed pictures of skulls. Others had words in big red letters that he couldn't understand. But Dr. Cole could feel something important waiting behind this door. His people had a sense for discovering new forms of life, and that sense was telling him that whatever was inside would change everything. He cut through this lock too and pushed the door open. Inside was a room filled with strange machines, computers, with dark screens lined the walls. Thick cables ran across the floor and up to the ceiling. But in the center of the room was something that made Dr. Cole stop breathing for a moment. It was a large glass tube about the size of a human body. Frost covered the outside, but through the ice Dr. Cole could see something that shouldn't exist. It was a human man, floating in some kind of liquid, with wires attached to his head and chest. Dr. Cole ran his scanner over the tube. The readings were amazing. The human inside was alive. His heart was beating, but very slowly. His brain was active, but in a deep sleep. Somehow, this man had been kept alive for hundreds of years. Dr. Cole called his team immediately. "You need to get down here right now, all of you." Within minutes, his 3 teammates arrived. Dr. Voss gasped when she saw the frozen human. Vexeth, their insect specialist, clicked his mandibles together in excitement. Commander Theknos, their Security officer just stared with his large reptilian eyes. "How is this possible?" Dr. Voss asked. She pressed her hands against the glass tube and looked closely at the human inside. "The records say all humans died in 2156. This equipment looks like it's been running for 300 years. Dr. Cole was reading information from a computer terminal next to the tube. "According to this, his name is Jake Morrison. He was 32 years old when he entered this chamber. The date was March 15th, 2089. Vexith made a buzzing sound that meant he was thinking hard. "That's 67 years before the plague killed the humans. Why would they freeze one of their own people?" Commander Theknos walked around the tube, examining it from all sides. His people came from a world where they had to be careful about everything. This could be dangerous. We don't know what diseases this human might carry. But Dr. Cole was reading more information from the computer. It says here that Jake Morrison was part of something called the Deep Space Exploration Project. He volunteered to be frozen so he could survive long trips to other star systems. But the project was canceled, and he was left here. Dr. Voss was looking at other machines in the room. These life support systems are incredible. They've kept him alive for almost 300 years using nuclear power. The humans were more advanced than we thought. The four aliens stood around the frozen human for a long time, each thinking about what this meant. They had come to Earth to study a dead species, but now they had found one who was still alive. Dr. Cole made the decision that would change everything. "We're going to wake him up." Vexith's wings buzzed in alarm. "The consortium protocols say we should report this discovery first. We need permission before we interact with an unknown life form." "But he's not unknown," Dr. Voss said. "We have thousands of records about humans. We know they're not dangerous to us." Commander Theknos was not convinced. "We know about the humans who lived 300 years ago. We don't know about this one. The fact that he survived when all others died makes him different." Dr. Cole was already connecting his equipment to the human machines. "That's exactly why we need to wake him up. Jake Morrison might be able to tell us things about humans that no record can. He might be the key to understanding why his species died out." The next few hours were spent carefully preparing to revive the frozen human. Dr. Voss worked on understanding the brain monitoring equipment. Vex analyzed the chemical composition of the liquid in the tube. Commander Theknos set up security measures in case something went wrong. Dr. Cole supervised everything, making sure they didn't damage the delicate systems that had kept Jake Morrison alive for so long. As he worked, he wondered what it would be like to sleep for 300 years and wake up to find your entire species extinct. The revival process began at sunset on Earth. The old machines hummed to life as they slowly warmed the frozen human. His heart rate increased gradually. His brain activity became stronger. After several hours, Jake Morrison's eyes began to move behind his closed eyelids. Dr. Cole watched the monitors carefully. Everything looked normal. The human was waking up exactly as the computer had predicted. But none of them knew that Jake Morrison was not just any human. He was something much more dangerous than they could imagine. Jake Morrison felt like he was swimming up from the bottom of a deep, dark ocean. His mind was foggy and his body felt heavy, but slowly he became aware of sounds around him. Voices were speaking, but they didn't sound like any language he had ever heard. His eyes opened slowly. The first thing he saw was a bright light above him. Then shapes moved around him, but his vision was still blurry. He tried to speak, but only a soft groan came out of his throat. "He's awake," said a voice. The words were clear, but Jake knew somehow that they were being translated by a machine. The voice belonged to someone who was not human. Jake's vision cleared, and he saw 4 faces looking down at him. His training as a test pilot had prepared him for many strange situations, but nothing like this. One face was blue with large black eyes. Another looked like a giant insect with clicking mandibles. The third was reptilian with scales and yellow eyes. The fourth looked almost human, but her hair was silver and her eyes were too green. Any normal person would have screamed or fainted. But Jake Morrison was not normal, even before his enhancements. He was a military pilot who had volunteered for the most dangerous space missions. His mind quickly processed what he was seeing and came to the only logical conclusion. "You're not from Earth," he said. His voice was rough from not being used for so long. Dr. Cole stepped closer to the medical bed where Jake was lying. "No, we are not. My name is Dr. Zephyrian Cole. We are scientists from the Galactic Scientific Consortium. You have been asleep for a very long time." Jake tried to sit up, but his muscles were weak. Dr. Voss helped him by raising the bed into a sitting position. "How long?" he asked. 298 years, Dr. Voss said gently. "The date is now July 23rd, 2387. Jake stared at her for a long moment. Then he looked around the room. Everything looked the same as when he had gone to sleep, but there was dust everywhere and some of the equipment was clearly alien technology. "What happened to the mission?" Jake asked. "Where is my team? Where is Dr. Williams?" The four aliens looked at each other. Dr. Cole spoke carefully. "Jake, I need to tell you something that will be very difficult to hear. The deep space exploration project was canceled shortly after you entered cryogenic sleep, but that's not the worst news." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "Tell me." "Humanity is extinct," Dr. Voss said softly. "A plague swept across Earth in 2156. Within 50 years, every human was dead. You are the only survivor we have found." Jake Morrison had been trained to handle bad news, but nothing had prepared him for this. He was quiet for several minutes, just breathing and thinking. The aliens waited patiently, understanding that he needed time to process this information. Finally, Jake spoke. "Show me." Over the next several hours, the aliens showed Jake what had happened to his world. They had video records of the final years of humanity. Cities empty and falling apart. Hospitals full of sick people. The last human settlements trying desperately to find a cure for the disease that was killing them all. Jake watched it all without showing much emotion, but inside, he felt like his heart was breaking. Everyone he had ever known was dead. His family, his friends, his colleagues. The entire human race was gone and he was alone. But as he watched the records, Jake's enhanced mind was also analyzing what he saw. The plague had not acted like a natural disease. It spread too quickly and killed too efficiently. It seemed designed to target human DNA specifically. "This wasn't natural," Jake said after watching the final video. "This plague was engineered." Bexith clicked his mandibles in surprise. "What makes you say that?" "I'm a pilot, but I also have training in biological warfare. This disease is too perfect. It kills humans but doesn't affect other Earth animals. It spreads through the air but also through water. It has multiple vectors of infection and no natural immunity. Someone made this." Dr. Cole was impressed by Jake's quick analysis. "You may be right, but we have no proof. The records from that time are incomplete." Jake stood up from the bed. His legs were shaky, but he was getting stronger quickly. "I want to see your historical databases. I want to know everything that happened during the years I was asleep." The aliens were amazed by how quickly Jake was recovering. Most beings who had been in cryogenic sleep for such a long time would need weeks to fully wake up. But Jake was walking around and asking intelligent questions after just a few hours. Dr. Voss led Jake to a computer terminal. She showed him how to access the consortium's historical records about Earth and humanity. Jake's hands moved over the YAM controls like he had been using alien technology his whole life. "How are you learning our system so quickly?" Dr. Voss asked. "The interfaces are logical," Jake replied, not looking up from the screen. "Once you understand the basic principles, the rest follows naturally." What Jake didn't tell them was that his mind was working much faster than it should. The enhancement procedures he had undergone before entering cryogenic sleep were beginning to activate. His brain was processing information at an incredible speed and making connections that would take normal humans much longer to see. As Jake read through the historical records, he began to piece together a disturbing picture. Humanity had been expanding rapidly across the galaxy before the plague hit. They had established colonies on dozens of worlds and were making contact with alien species for the first time. Many of these first contacts had not gone well. Humans were aggressive and competitive compared to most alien species. They adapted quickly to new environments and their technology advanced at a frightening pace. Some alien governments had begun to see humanity as a potential threat. Jake found records of meetings between alien leaders where they discussed the human problem. They were worried that humans would eventually become too powerful to control. Some aliens had even suggested that humanity should be contained before they spread too far. Dr. Cole, Jake said, turning away from the computer. I need you to be honest with me. Did any alien species have the technology to create the plague that killed my people? Dr. Cole hesitated. Several species had advanced biological research capabilities. But Jake, no one would do such a thing. The Galactic Consortium has strict laws against biological warfare. But not all alien species are part of your consortium, are they? Jake asked. Commander Theknos answered this time. No. There is another group called the Hegemony. They represent about 40% of known alien civilizations. The Hegemony and the Consortium don't always agree on policies regarding emerging species. Jake felt pieces of the puzzle clicking together in his enhanced mind. And what was the Hegemony's position on human expansion? The aliens were quiet for a moment. Finally, Dr. Voss spoke. They believed that humanity should be restricted to Earth until they proved they could coexist peacefully with other species. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Restricted to Earth. And when the plague hit, did the Hegemony offer any help? They said the plague was too dangerous, Commander Theknos admitted. They quarantined the entire solar system to prevent it from spreading. Jake turned back to the computer and began searching through more records. His fingers moved incredibly fast over the controls, accessing databases that should have taken hours to search through. In minutes, he had found what he was looking for. Here, he said, pointing to the screen. Medical records from Hegemony worlds during the time of the plague. Look at the research they were doing. The aliens gathered around the screen and read the information Jake had found. Dr. Cole's blue skin went pale. The records showed that Hegemony scientists had been working on biological weapons designed specifically to target human DNA. This could be a coincidence, Dr. Voss said, but her voice was uncertain. Could be, Jake agreed, but I doubt it. Jake continued searching through the records, and with each new piece of information he found, the picture became clearer. The plague that had destroyed humanity was not a natural disaster or an accident. It was genocide, carefully planned and executed by alien species who feared what humans might become. As Jake worked, the aliens watched him with growing amazement and concern. His learning speed was incredible. His ability to find connections between seemingly unrelated pieces of information was beyond anything they had ever seen. And there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there when he first woke up. A cold intelligence that seemed to be growing stronger by the hour. Doctor. Cole began to wonder what kind of human they had awakened. Jake Morrison was clearly not an ordinary member of his species. The enhancement procedures mentioned in his medical files had been classified, but it was becoming obvious that they had done something significant to his mental capabilities. Jake finally stopped searching and turned to face the four aliens. I know what happened to my people, he said. The question now is what I'm going to do about it. 3 days had passed since Jake Morrison learned the truth about his people's death. The alien research station had become his temporary home, but he was not the same man who had been awakened from the frozen sleep. Something was happening to him, something that made the alien scientists both amazed and frightened. Jake was standing in the station's main laboratory, looking at a broken piece of equipment. It was a quantum energy converter that had stopped working 2 months ago. The aliens had tried to fix it many times, but the technology was too complex even for their advanced knowledge. Jake picked up the device and turned it over in his hands. He had never seen anything like it before, but somehow he understood how it worked. The energy flowed through crystalline matrices that created resonance patterns in subspace. One of the crystals was cracked, but that wasn't the real problem. The issue isn't the crystal, Jake said to Dr. Voss, who was watching him work. The problem is in the quantum field alignment. See these connection points? They're creating interference patterns that cancel out the primary energy flow. Dr. Voss stared at him in shock. Jake, that's impossible. You've only been awake for 3 days. This technology takes years to understand. Jake didn't answer. He was already taking the device apart with tools he had found in the lab. His hands moved with perfect precision, removing components in exactly the right order. Within an hour, he had rebuilt the entire internal structure. When he turned the device on, it hummed softly and began producing energy at twice its original capacity. How did you do that? Dr. Voss asked. Jake looked at his hands with confusion. I don't know. I just looked at it and understood how it was supposed to work. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. The day before, Jake had improved the station's air recycling system, just by walking past it and noticing a design flaw. He had also solved a computer problem that had been bothering Vexith for weeks. Dr. Cole was running medical scans on Jake every day, and the results were becoming more disturbing each time. Jake's brain was changing. New neural pathways were forming at an incredible rate. His brain activity was becoming more complex and organized than any human they had on record. The enhancement procedures you underwent before cryogenic sleep, Dr. Cole said during Jake's daily medical exam. The records are classified, but we can see their effects. Your brain is evolving in real time. Jake lay still on the medical table while machines scanned his body. What kind of effects? Your neurons are creating new connections constantly. Your memory capacity is expanding. Your processing speed is increasing exponentially. Most concerning, your brain is developing entirely new structures that we don't understand. Jake sat up and looked at the brain scans on the wall monitor. Even to his enhanced mind, the images looked alien. Am I still human? Dr. Cole was quiet for a moment. I don't know. That evening, Jake was alone in his quarters when he decided to access the station's main computer system. He had been given basic access to help with his research, but there were many files he couldn't reach. Security protocols prevented him from seeing classified information about the hegemony and their involvement in humanity's extinction. Jake placed his hands on the computer terminal and focused his mind. He had been practicing this new ability for the past day, though he hadn't told the aliens about it. Somehow he could interface directly with electronic systems just by touching them. The computer's defenses felt like locked doors in his mind, but Jake's enhanced brain was learning to pick those locks. One by one, the security barriers fell away. Within minutes, he had complete access to the Galactic Consortium's most secret files. What he found there made his blood run cold. The hegemony hadn't just created the plague that killed humanity. They had been planning humanity's destruction for over 50 years before the plague was released. The files contained detailed studies of human expansion, projections of human technological development, and assessments of the threat humanity posed to galactic stability. The most disturbing document was labeled Final Solution to the Human Problem. It outlined a plan to eliminate humanity entirely while making it look like a natural disaster. The plague was just one part of a larger strategy that included destroying human colonies on other worlds and hunting down any survivors. But there was something else in the files that shocked Jake even more. The hegemony had been aware of the human enhancement programs. They knew that some humans had been given genetic modifications that would make them far more dangerous than normal humans. The plague had been specifically designed to kill enhanced humans as well as regular ones. Except it hadn't worked on Jake. Something about his particular enhancements, combined with the cryogenic sleep, had made him immune to the biological weapon that destroyed his species. Jake was reading through a file about the enhancement project when he heard footsteps in the corridor outside his room. He quickly closed the classified files and returned the computer to normal access mode. A moment later, Dr. Cole knocked on his door. Jake, may I come in? Of course. Dr. Cole entered the room and immediately noticed that Jake looked upset. Is something wrong? Jake decided to trust him. I accessed some classified files in your computer system. Dr. Cole's blue skin went pale. That's impossible. Those files have quantum encryption. Even our most advanced systems can't break through that security. I didn't break through it, Jake said. I went around it. My brain seems to be able to interface directly with computer systems now. Dr. Cole sat down heavily in a chair. What did you find? Jake told him everything. The hegemony's plan to destroy humanity. The detailed studies of human capabilities. The fear that humans would eventually become too powerful for other species to control. And most importantly, the evidence that Jake himself was something the hegemony had tried very hard to prevent from existing. According to their own research, Jake said, enhanced humans like me were supposed to be impossible. The genetic modifications should have made us unstable. We should have died within a few years of the enhancement procedures. But you didn't die, Dr. Cole said quietly. No, I got stronger. And now, 300 years later, I'm still getting stronger. Dr. Cole was quiet for a long time, thinking about what this meant. Finally, he spoke. Jake, there's something I need to tell you. I've been sending reports about your progress to Consortium headquarters. They've been forwarding copies to the hegemony as part of our information sharing agreement. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. They know I'm alive. Yes. And based on what you've just told me, they're probably not happy about it. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the dead landscape of Earth stretching to the horizon. His homeworld was a graveyard, and he was the only mourner at the funeral of his entire species. How long before they send someone to deal with me? Jake asked. I don't know. Maybe weeks, maybe days. Jake turned back to Dr. Cole. You've been kind to me. You and your team saved my life and showed me the truth about what happened to my people. I want you to know that I'm grateful. But I can't let them kill me. I'm the only witness to what they did. I'm the only proof that humanity was murdered. Dr. Cole nodded slowly. What are you going to do? Jake was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was different, harder, more determined. I'm going to make sure the galaxy knows the truth, and then I'm going to make sure something like this never happens again. Over the next few hours, Jake began to prepare for what was coming. He used his new abilities to access every computer system on the station, learning everything he could about hegemony technology and military capabilities. He studied star charts and trade routes, looking for ways to spread the truth about humanity's extinction across the galaxy. But most importantly, he began to test the limits of his growing powers. His strength was now 3 times what it had been when he first woke up. His reflexes were becoming superhuman. His ability to understand and manipulate technology was advancing so rapidly that even he didn't fully comprehend what he was becoming. Dr. Voss found him in the station's workshop, late that night, building something she didn't recognize. What is that? She asked. Jake looked up from his work. His eyes seemed to glow with an inner light that hadn't been there before. Insurance, he said. When they come for me, I want to be ready. Dr. Voss looked at the device Jake was building. It appeared to be some kind of weapon, but the design was unlike anything in their databases. Jake, you're scaring us. The person who woke up 3 days ago was lost and confused. Now you're different. Jake set down his tools and looked at her directly. 3 days ago, I was the last human alive, and I didn't know why my people had died. Now I know that my entire species was murdered by aliens who were afraid of what we might become, and I'm discovering that their fears were completely justified. Dr. Voss took a step backward. There was something in Jake's voice that made her primitive survival instincts activate. What do you mean? Jake smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. I mean that the hegemony created the perfect weapon to destroy humanity, but they made one mistake. They left one of us alive, and now that one human has abilities they never imagined possible. Jake returned to his work, and Dr. Voss quietly left the workshop. The alarm started screaming at 3 in the morning. Jake was already awake working on modifications to the station's defense systems when the emergency lights began flashing red throughout the corridors. He had been expecting this moment for the past week. Dr. Cole's voice came through the communication system, urgent and frightened. Everyone to the control room immediately. We have a situation. Jake arrived at the control room before any of the other aliens. The main display screen showed multiple ships approaching Earth from deep space. They were moving fast and would reach the planet in less than 6 hours. Dr. Voss ran into the room, followed by Vexith and Commander Theknos. All of them looked worried and confused. "Who are they?" Dr. Voss asked, staring at the approaching ships. Dr. Cole checked his instruments. "The ships are broadcasting hegemony identification codes. This is a military fleet, not a research vessel." Jake looked at the display and counted 12 large warships. Each one was designed for destruction, not exploration. "They're here for me." Commander Theknos was trying to contact the approaching fleet on the radio. "Hegemony vessels, this is Research Station Omega. Please state your intentions." The answer came back immediately, spoken in a cold, mechanical voice. "Research Station Omega, you are harboring a dangerous biological specimen. Evacuate all personnel immediately. This facility will be destroyed in 6 hours." Dr. Cole turned to Jake with fear in his large black eyes. "They're not even going to try to capture you, they just want you dead." Jake was not surprised. "They can't risk me escaping. I know too much about what they did to humanity." Vexith was buzzing nervously. "We should leave. Our ship can carry all of us away from here before they arrive." "No," Jake said firmly. "If we run, they'll hunt us down, and they'll kill all of you for helping me." Dr. Voss looked confused. "Then what do you suggest we do? We can't fight 12 warships with a research station." Jake walked to the main computer terminal and placed his hands on the control surface. His enhanced mind reached into the station's systems, accessing functions that the original builders had never intended to be used together. "Actually," Jake said with a slight smile, "we can fight them. This station has more defensive capability than you realize." The aliens watched in amazement as Jake's consciousness flowed through the computer networks. His brain was no longer limited to normal human thinking patterns. He could process information from hundreds of sources simultaneously and see connections that would take normal minds hours to understand. "Jake, what are you doing?" Dr. Cole asked. "I'm showing you what your own technology can do when it's properly used," Jake replied. The station's power systems began to hum with new energy. Jake had connected the research equipment to the main reactor in ways that created feedback loops and amplification effects. The defensive shields that were designed to protect against radiation and small debris suddenly became powerful enough to stop military weapons. But that was just the beginning. Jake accessed the station's communication array and turned it into a massive sensor system that could track ships across the entire solar system. He converted the atmospheric processing equipment into a gravity manipulation device that could pull objects out of orbit. Most impressive of all, he took the station's sample analysis lasers and linked them together into a weapon system that could cut through spaceship armor like paper. "This is impossible," Commander Theknos said. "These systems weren't designed to work together this way." Jake looked up from the computer terminal. His eyes were glowing with the same inner light that Dr. Voss had noticed before, but now it was much brighter. "The systems work together because I understand how energy flows through quantum fields. Your engineers think in separate categories, but I can see the underlying patterns that connect everything." Dr. Cole was reading the power output measurements on his scanner. "Jake, the energy levels you're generating are beyond anything we thought possible. How are you doing this?" "The enhancement procedures didn't just change my brain," Jake explained. "They changed how I interact with the physical world. I can sense electromagnetic fields, quantum fluctuations, even gravitational waves. Technology isn't separate from me anymore. It's like an extension of my body." Jake demonstrated by walking to a broken communications device that had been sitting in the corner for months. He placed his hand on it, and within seconds it began working perfectly. "I don't need to understand how every part works," Jake said. "I can feel what's wrong and fix it directly." The aliens were beginning to realize that they hadn't just awakened a human. They had awakened something that represented the next stage of human evolution. Jake Morrison was what humanity could have become if they had been allowed to survive and grow. 3 hours before the hegemony fleet was scheduled to arrive, Jake made an announcement that shocked everyone. "I'm going to send a message to every inhabited world in the galaxy," he said. "That's impossible," Vex buzzed. The communication array doesn't have enough power to reach that far. Jake was already connecting new cables between the communication system and the main reactor. It will when I'm done with it. Jake worked for the next 2 hours, rebuilding the communication array from scratch. He used principles of quantum entanglement and subspace resonance that were theoretical even to the most advanced alien scientists. When he finished, the station had a communication system more powerful than anything the Galactic Consortium had ever built. "Jake," Dr. Voss said quietly, "if you send this message, there's no going back. The entire galaxy will know that humanity had the potential to become more advanced than any other species." "Good," Jake replied. "It's time they knew the truth." Jake began broadcasting his message across the galaxy. It contained everything he had learned about the hegemony's plan to destroy humanity. He included the classified files showing how alien leaders had decided to commit genocide because they were afraid of human potential. But most importantly, Jake proved that their fears had been justified. As he spoke, he demonstrated his abilities for the camera. He showed how he could control technology with his mind, how he could process information at superhuman speeds, and how he could solve problems that had puzzled alien scientists for decades. "My name is Jake Morrison," he said in his broadcast. "I am the last known survivor of the human species. My people were not destroyed by disease or war. They were murdered by the hegemony because some aliens were afraid of what we might become." Jake paused and looked directly into the camera. They were right to be afraid. The message was being received on thousands of worlds across the galaxy. In the Galactic Consortium capital, emergency meetings were being called. On hegemony worlds, military leaders were demanding to know how this had happened, but Jake wasn't finished. He had one more demonstration of human potential that would change everything. "For 300 years you have lived in a galaxy without humans," Jake continued. "You thought you were safe from our ambition and our rapid technological development, but you made one critical mistake. You left one of us alive." Jake reached out with his enhanced mind and connected to every computer system within 100 light-years of Earth. Government databases, military networks, civilian communication systems, all of them fell under his control as easily as if he owned them. "I now have access to the computer networks of 47 different worlds," Jake announced. "I could crash your economies, disable your defenses, or destroy your infrastructure with a thought. But I won't, because humans are not the monsters you believed us to be." Jake released his control over the alien computer systems, but the demonstration had made his point. One enhanced human, working alone, had just proved that he could bring down entire civilizations if he chose to. "The hegemony is sending ships to kill me," Jake said. "They want to finish what they started 3 centuries ago. But I am no longer just one man. I am proof of what humanity could have achieved if you had given us the chance to grow alongside you instead of murdering us in our sleep." Jake turned off the broadcast and looked at his alien friends. Dr. Cole, Dr. Voss, Vexith, and Commander Theknos were all staring at him with mixtures of awe and fear. "Now they know," Jake said simply. "The question is what they're going to do about it." 1 hour later, the hegemony fleet arrived at Earth, but they were no longer facing a helpless research station. They were facing Jake Morrison, the last human, who had just announced to the galaxy that humanity's potential had been far greater than anyone had imagined. The final battle for the truth about humanity's extinction was about to begin. The hegemony fleet came out of hyperspace like angry hornets. 12 massive warships formed a circle around Earth, their weapons aimed at the small research station where Jake Morrison waited. The lead ship was 3 times larger than the others, bristling with enough firepower to destroy entire cities. Admiral Corvin, commander of the hegemony fleet, appeared on the station's main screen. He was a tall alien with gray skin and cold silver eyes. Behind him, the bridge of his ship buzzed with activity as his crew prepared for battle. "Jake Morrison," Admiral Corvin said, his voice filled with disgust. "You are an abomination that should have died with the rest of your filthy species. Surrender now, and we will make your death quick." Jake stood in front of the communication screen, flanked by his 4 alien friends. He looked calm and confident even though he was facing impossible odds. "Admiral Corvin," Jake replied. "I've read your files. You were one of the architects of humanity's genocide. You helped design the plague that killed billions of innocent people, including children." Admiral Corvin's face twisted with anger. "Your species was a cancer that would have consumed the galaxy. We did what was necessary to protect civilized life. You committed murder because you were afraid," Jake said simply. "And now you're about to learn why your fears were justified." The first attack came without warning. Energy beams from 6 different ships struck the research station simultaneously. But instead of destroying the facility, the weapon's fire was absorbed by Jake's modified shield system and converted into additional power for the station's defenses. Admiral Corvin stared at his tactical display in shock. "Impossible. Those shields should have failed instantly." Jake's voice came through the communication channel, still calm and controlled. "Your technology is based on the idea that different systems work separately. But I understand how energy connects everything. Your weapons are just feeding my defenses." The station's modified laser array fired back at the hegemony ships. The beams were far more powerful than anything the aliens expected from a research facility. The nearest warship's shields failed immediately, and the laser cut deep into its hull. "All ships, maximum firepower," Admiral Corvin ordered. "Destroy that station now." 12 warships opened fire at once, filling space with deadly energy beams and explosive missiles. For a moment, the research station disappeared in a cloud of fire and destruction. But when the smoke cleared, the station was still there. Jake's shields had held against the combined assault of an entire battle fleet. Dr. Cole watched the tactical display with amazement. "Jake, how are you doing this?" "I'm not fighting their technology," Jake explained as he worked at the computer terminal. "I'm using their own weapons against them. Every shot they fire gives me more power to work with." Jake's enhanced mind was operating on multiple levels simultaneously. Part of him was controlling the station's defenses, another part was monitoring the enemy ships for weaknesses, and a third part was already planning his next move. The station's gravity manipulation system activated, and 2 of the smaller hegemony ships were pulled together with crushing force. Their hulls cracked and atmosphere began leaking into space. Admiral Corvin was becoming desperate. "Launch fighters. Get boarding parties onto that station. I want that human dead." Hundreds of small fighter ships poured out of the larger vessels and raced toward the research station. But Jake was ready for them. The modified sensor array locked onto each fighter individually, and the laser system fired with impossible precision. Within minutes, the entire fighter squadron was destroyed. "This is impossible," Admiral Corvin muttered. "One human cannot defeat an entire fleet." But Jake wasn't just one human anymore. The enhancement procedures had unlocked potential that even his creators hadn't fully understood. His consciousness was expanded beyond normal human limitations, allowing him to process vast amounts of information and control complex systems with perfect precision. The battle continued for 2 hours, with the hegemony fleet throwing everything they had at the research station. But Jake turned each attack into an advantage. When they fired energy weapons, he absorbed the power. When they launched missiles, he used the station's gravity fields to redirect them back at the attackers. One by one, the hegemony warships began to fail. Their weapons overheated from constant firing. Their shields buckled under Jake's counterattacks. Several ships tried to retreat, but Jake's gravity manipulation prevented them from escaping. Admiral Corvin found himself commanding only 3 operational ships out of the original 12. His flagship was damaged and his crew was beginning to panic. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human is hacking our computer systems. He's trying to access our databases." Admiral Corvin's silver eyes went wide with fear. "Stop him. Use every security protocol we have." But Jake's enhanced mind flowed through the alien computer networks like water through a sieve. Within minutes, he had downloaded the complete records of the hegemony's genocide against humanity, including personal communications between the leaders who had planned the extinction. "Thank you, Admiral." Jake's voice came through the ship's speakers. I now have all the evidence I need to prove what your people did to mine. Jake began broadcasting the stolen files across the galaxy, not just to government leaders but to ordinary citizens on thousands of worlds. The communications included detailed plans for humanity's destruction, discussions about how to make the genocide look natural, and even jokes about human suffering. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On consortium worlds, massive protests began demanding justice for humanity. Even on some hegemony planets, citizens were horrified to learn what their leaders had done. But the most significant response came from an unexpected source. Deep in the outer regions of the galaxy, automated systems began activating, systems that had been waiting patiently for almost 300 years. "What is that?" Dr. Voss asked, pointing to new signals appearing on the long-range sensors. Jake smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Those are human colony ships. We didn't put all our eggs in one basket. When Earth was quarantined, our deep space missions kept going. Some of them had enhanced humans like me on board." Admiral Corvin's face went pale as he realized what this meant. "You're saying there are more of you out there?" "Dozens of ships, hundreds of enhanced humans in cryogenic sleep, waiting for the all-clear signal to wake up and establish new colonies. I just sent that signal." Jake had found the locations of the hidden human fleets in the stolen hegemony files. The alien leaders had known about some of the colony ships, but had never been able to track them down. Now those ships were coming home. Admiral Corvin made one last desperate attempt to kill Jake. He activated his flagship's self-destruct system and aimed the ship directly at the research station. "If I'm going to die," Admiral Corvin screamed, "I'm taking you with me." But Commander Theknos had been watching the tactical display carefully. Despite his reptilian appearance, he had developed genuine friendship with the humans and his fellow researchers. When he saw the flagship beginning its suicide run, he didn't hesitate. Commander Theknos ran to the station's auxiliary control room and manually overrode the gravity manipulation system. The massive surge of gravitational force stopped the flagship's approach, but the feedback destroyed the control room and mortally wounded the brave commander. Jake found Commander Theknos lying in the wreckage, his breathing shallow and labored. "Why did you do that?" Jake asked, kneeling beside his friend. Commander Theknos looked up at Jake with his large yellow eyes. "Because not all aliens feared your people. Some of us wanted to learn from you, to grow alongside you." Commander died with a peaceful expression on his face, and Jake felt something break inside his enhanced heart. Commander Theknos had proved that friendship could exist between species, even in the face of fear and hatred. The remaining hegemony ships surrendered rather than face destruction. Admiral Corvin was taken prisoner, along with his surviving crew members. They would stand trial for genocide before representatives from across the galaxy. But Jake's work was far from over. Over the following weeks, human colony ships began arriving at Earth. Enhanced humans emerged from cryogenic sleep to find their homeworld dead, but their species very much alive. Jake stood in the observation deck of the rebuilt research station, watching as the first new human settlement was established in the ruins of New York City. Dr. Cole and Dr. Voss stood beside him, still amazed by everything that had happened. "What happens now?" Dr. Voss asked. Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking about Commander Theknos and all the other aliens who had shown courage and kindness in the face of fear. "Now we rebuild," Jake said. "But not the old way. Humans and aliens working together, learning from each other. We'll make sure that fear never again leads to genocide." Jake turned away from the window and looked at his friends. "The hegemony tried to destroy us because they were afraid of what we might become, but they were looking at it wrong. Our potential isn't a threat to other species, it's a gift we can share with them." Dr. Cole nodded slowly. "And if some species still refuse to coexist peacefully?" Jake's expression became serious. "Then they'll learn that enhanced humans are very good at protecting the things we care about."